Hello. I'm happy that you're here this morning or today to listen to my lecture. First, I'm going to ask the interpreter to turn off her voice, and I want to ask you what you think. What is your idea of an interpreter? I know you've come in here and you're ready to sit, and I'm going to lecture and sign. Okay, interpreter, I don't want you to voice for me right now. I want all of you to sit for a few minutes and watch. You don't have an interpreter. But then the interpreter comes in, and who's that interpreter for? It's not just for me, it's for you also. So she comes in, and it's a perfect match for me, for you to ask questions to me, and for me to answer. Some people think that an interpreter is just for the deaf, but it's important to know that an interpreter is for both of us. So we're going to start with choices, multiple choices. I'm going to ask a question, and then you're going to think and say which one. Which one is it? Right answer, A, B, or which one do I pick, A, B, or C? There is no mistake. There's no wrong learning. We are all here to learn, and in 1 hour, we're not going to be able to learn everything that we need to know. We're going to get some information and then go out and use it in the world. So, if you have a question and you're curious, then please raise your hand and ask that question. The reason it's important for all of us before we leave that we ask that one question, and then maybe we are afraid to ask because we don't know the concept, but that's what we're here. That's what I'm here for, is for you to ask questions. So that's important. Keep that in mind. Okay, I'm going to ask some questions, and I want you to answer. Okay? Okay, which word best describes a person who is deaf? First, deaf, of course, and then 2, hard of hearing. 3, hearing impaired. 4, maybe disability. And 5, you just don't know. Now, how many describe themselves as being deaf? Raise your hands, please. Okay, maybe 5 or 10 people. How about number 2, hard of hearing? None for hard of hearing. How about the 3rd, hearing impaired? By a show of hands, maybe 3. And the 4th, physically impaired, or maybe a physical disability. Nobody. Okay. 5, you just don't know. How many just really don't know? Okay. What is the answer? A, deaf. Deaf people they're involved with the culture. They do ASL for their language. They can't hear at all. They're profoundly deaf, and they usually don't speak. They don't use their voice. I'm sorry. In America, it's very general. It's broad. There's a spectrum: deaf, hard of hearing, hearing impaired. So let's kind of narrow it down. $350,000 have a hearing loss. So that's huge. They have some kind of a hearing loss. We'll narrow it down to deaf for 40,000. There are 40,000 people that are deaf. Now I have a question. How do you feel about there's just one universal sign language for everyone? How many think that's true or false? First, by a show of hands, how many think that's true? How many answer false? All of you. Awesome. Perfect. And you're right. There are all kinds of different sign language. Here in America, it's ASL. It includes the grammar, facial expression, body language, the culture, all kinds of different sentences it's involved in interpreting. So she must practice and copy the language, learn the language, speak the language, and then you're able to interpret. You hold the sentence, you wait, you listen for the context, you listen to the sentences, and then when you get the concept, you move on. Okay, I'm going to give you an example of a vocabulary word. The English word run. You see it in a sentence, and you're signing different things. They can, the signing of running of the nose or running of water. A third meaning could be running in a race. Everything is in a different sentence, so you have to wait for the information, listen to the content, and then interpret the right terminology. Okay, how do you feel about deaf people and reading lips? True or false? Can all deaf people read lips? How many say true? Okay, one. How about false? How many people say false? All deaf people can read lips, maybe 18, 19. Research has shown 35% can read lips, and the others, they miss it and they have no clue. And they miss information. Some words you can read off the lips, and others you can't. So I'm going to give you two words. Which one do you think the first one was? Others are saying test. Other person is saying sex. Other person is saying, oh, six. Somebody said sex. That person is saying sex. Somebody's saying six. The first word was six. The second word was sex. So imagine someone, looking and trying to read the information off their lips. You can miss information from lip reading. So maybe you're looking and they say how much, and their mouth is moving, but it's not exactly. Oh, you gave a certain amount of money, but it was really 15. So there's a disadvantage. You've missed that information. Okay. Can anybody copy, sign, and interpret? How many think true? Maybe one. Okay, how about false? Maybe half. The answer is you can't do that. Why? Because you copy and you sign, there's more involved in interpreting. You can't just copy. You have to know the culture and the language and the body language and the expressions. There's more to it than just copy and assign. So you just come in and sign and copy and you think you're done and you've done a wonderful job. You need to go into an interpreter's training program. That would be the best idea. Okay, I have another question. True or false? If you're looking at a person with a hearing aid and you know, he can probably hear and understand me. True or false? How many think true? Maybe 6. How many say false? 2, half, 2, some are still thinking, not quite sure. Okay, your answer is no, not always. Hang on just a minute. Okay, we have 3 groups. So we're going to compare the basics. First you have your deaf group and then hard of hearing, and then people that are deafened later on in life. First, deaf. They're most from deaf schools. They know ASL. They're involved. They come from that deaf culture. Family or generation. Um, then you have the hard of hearing. A little bit deaf and a little bit hearing. They have a hearing aid and they can relate with a little bit of in the deaf culture. So they're kind of in the middle. They don't, they know some English language and they know some ASL. And now there again, they're still kind of in the middle of the English world, the hearing world, and the deaf world. And then you have the hearing or the latent deaf. They've grown up all their life hearing. They know English. They really don't know a lot of sign, and then one day they can't hear. So their experience are more with the English world. They've not grown up in the ASL world. So let's compare. They move all over the place. And then you've got these people that, I'm not so sure I want to learn sign, and they struggle, you know. They just have a hard time when they're deafened later on in life. Okay, let's talk about the language. Where do you fit in? You just don't know sometimes where you fit in. People that have hearing aids still want to hang on to the hearing world, but yet they struggle because they miss and they can't hear. Oh, So they struggle and they have difficulty sometimes in both, fitting into both worlds. Okay. Okay, I've got another question. Answer true or false. How many think true? But I missed the question. None. How many think false? It's false. Remember ASL? It has to do with grammar and expressions and culture. And then with the hearing, the hard of hearing, they know a little bit of ASL and they can write probably. It just depends on the influence that they've had. And then maybe a little bit better for the hearing impaired. Of course, they're all English. And they've gone to a hearing school and the public school, and they've learned English and they know how to write, and they have good grammar. And they can so they can move into the same here within America. It's our job to teach and to help them understand.